So next I want to show you some different bowing patterns. I know we've kind of gotten into this a little bit with the tunes, and that's how I mostly think of it actually, is instead of separating the right hand from the left hand and saying, okay, here's a bowing pattern and apply it to this. I think of it more as it goes along with the melody, because you're bowing it that way because of the number of notes and the way that they're grouped and the way that they lay out across the strings. But that said, there are some kind of standard things that you may already be doing and be aware of, but we're just going to talk about them specifically. So the number one thing that is just found all over the place is the shuffle bowing, the one where you do a long bow and then 2 short bows, and then you do the same thing in the other direction. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And that, it works great with either a tune that has all 8th notes in the melody, or if you have a quarter note and then 2 8th notes, then that's exactly the rhythm of what you're doing with your right hand. So that also works. So a tune that I think is a good example of this is the tune Indian Ate the Woodchuck from Ed Haley. And that goes... and then it breaks the pattern at the end, but most of the A section and the B section as well use this pattern. And you'll hear that this tune does have the 4/8 groups, so it doesn't have the long da 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 built into the melody. It's just da 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 da, but that's what your right hand is doing. So listen again. And then it changes there. And same thing in the B part. So yeah, basically you can kind of plug that bowing in and go until it doesn't work anymore. And that works on a lot of other tunes too, and sometimes just specific parts. Like you wouldn't necessarily have to start the phrase with that bowing, but you'd get to a part in the tune where it really made sense to do that. So that's one, the shuffle. And then another one that comes up a lot is this, if you think in a group of 8 8th notes, so take those 8 8/8ths and group them 3 3 and then 2 separate. So that would look like... So starting right on the downbeat with a down bow on the first slur. And that one works great like that. And sometimes with this one, I found that it doesn't always feel right to do it 2 times in a row. So it's something about, I think, the balance of how it feels, because these groups of 3, it's kind of like you're playing across the beats, because the beat is 2, right? So da 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 da. You're creating this syncopation. People also refer to this pattern, like when you just think of it as what's happening rhythmically, as 1 4 7, because those are the 8th notes out of that group of 8 8ths that have the emphasis on them. So when you change bow direction, you create an accent, basically. And like sometimes, like some people with a really smooth bow arm, it wouldn't be so pronounced, but most of the time, the bowing, when you switch, it's gonna sound different, so that's gonna create the feeling of an accent in that spot where you've changed. So da 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 is the feel that you're getting from this bowing pattern. So what I was saying is, like, if you do that one time, you might want to do a different thing in the next bars that follow. So I was just playing Billy in the Low Ground to demonstrate. I would use that pattern one time and then switch it up, and then use the pattern again and then switch it up on the next phrase. So that would look like this. Shuffle. Something like that. So basically just having that pattern and then moving away from it to create that, you know, different sound. And oh yeah, another thing about this pattern is that you can extend it. So instead of just doing 2 groups of 3, you could do 4 groups of 3, which would put you with 12 eighth notes, and then you got 4 more eighths to finish out that 16, the length of 16 eighths, or 4 bars. So that would look like this. So it's definitely has a different feel to it because you're keeping that 3 against 4 feeling happening longer. And then you end up with those 4 eighth notes at the end, and you can kind of do whatever you want then, as long as it puts you back on a down bow for the next downbeat. So you could do separate, da 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 da, or you could do slur 2, slur 2. So listen to that again, and just feel how it's moving across the beats. And if I was going to use that, I probably wouldn't bow it in a super obvious accenty way, because that feels a little too jerky. So you can do a cool bowing and still smooth it out, so it doesn't sound jarring to the ear every time you do a bow stroke on an unexpected beat. Okay, so that's the 3-3-1-1 or the 3-3-3-3-1-1-1-1. Another typical thing would be to just bow everything separate, and that's going to depend on the melody of the tune a lot, because if you have a longer note, then you have to do a longer bow, and that might kind of switch up what direction you're going in and put you in a weird place where you need to slur to kind of get back to your down bow, downbeat thing on the next strong phrase beginning. But if you have a tune that's super notey, then it can work really well because you just do da 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 the whole time. So an example of that would be the tune Ragtime Annie in the A section. And another thing about this tune is that, yes, it's separate, but it's also string crossings. It's kind of bouncing back and forth between 2 strings. So that sounds like this. And I do a slur on the pickup notes just because. Shuffle. 3-3-2 to end it. Separate. Slur. Separate. And then it kind of changes when the notes get different, but that works well for that first phrase. So that's always an option. You don't have to do lots of slurs. You can also just see what happens if you do a different bow stroke on every single note of the tune. And one final pattern, and I don't use this one very often, but it's cool, and it pops up a bunch in Bluegrass, and it's very strong. It sticks out to the ear in a cool way. So it's basically slurring 3 and then doing 1 to compensate for that. So in a group of 4, 3 are slurred, but they're slurred across the beat, so it's up, down, up, down, up. It's going to make more sense when I do it. So the bluegrass version of June Apple uses this. The A is the downbeat, so listen to it that way. So because you've done this big slur and then you have only one note on the other bow direction, you have to do a really big bow stroke there. So that's kind of what gives it that really strong flavor. So I don't know what that's called, but it's out there and you can use it too. And that's kind of what I think of as some of the most common bowings that pop up in lots of different tunes. So there you have it. And now we'll go back and learn all those tunes in full.